Issue 7. So Tails got his hands on a seesaw, which Sonic comments that he hasn't seen ever since Robotnik outlawed fun games. I don't understand why he would though. I mean, I get that maybe he's spiteful and doesn't want people other than him to have fun. But this is the problem I have with Eggman. He's not a person. He's a plot device. He's there to be a villain and that's it. So they make him a ridiculously over-the-top strawman who hates everything good just because it's good, like freaking Zord, or whatever the emo Zeddy is called. And it just goes past the point of believability. It's not good to have Eggman be too comedic because then he's just pathetic, but this is the other extreme, where he fails to function as a human being. The best Eggman would be a threat to the extent of the comics while still being a believable character. Anyways, I like how Rotor immediately gets all giddy and wants to try the seesaw out, in complete blissful ignorance of the fact that his weight compared to that of Tails will make the seesaw not work the way he wants, as he never played within the playground before. The issue with him wanting an ant farm just to have the simple joy of watching ants kind of endeared him to me in that specific context. The appeal of Rotor may be that he's a genius who's also simple-minded like a child, making him innocent and endearing. And since Eggman is also supposed to be a man-child, but he's the evil kind, this makes Rotor an excellent contrast by showing the good side of being like a child. So while I still don't really like Rotor, seeing him as just a character for spouting puns and other forced jokes who just happens to be an engineer to justify himself, I can at least appreciate him in moments like this, where his character seems to come to life, being likable. But there is certainly a problem with the character when it took me this long to understand why people are anything other than meh towards him. He's not bad, but he's also not good either. Anyways, after Rotor sits on the seesaw, this actually sends Tails flying up to the ceiling, where he hits his head on it, giving him a brutal concussion that leaves him in a coma. Nah, that's not what happened, because that would make sense. Instead, Tails is just fine, and while Rotor tries to catch him from landing on the hard floor and shows that he truly cares about him in the process, Sonic is ultimately the one to catch him, which pushes Rotor out of the way. Through the power of plot convenience, Rotor finds out that there was a treasure map of Sonic's uncle hidden in the hole Tails made in the ceiling of the Freedom Fighters base. Why the hell was that there? What, does this underground base have a connection with Uncle Chuck somehow? Sonic didn't even live here until after he was roboticized. And, like, Sally just met Sonic after he was roboticized. So, what? And Rotor looks like an idiot here by somehow mistaking the map for connect the dots. Okay, I might find him charming as a brilliant simpleton, but don't make him into Big the Cat levels of stupid, that's just irritating. He's better than that. The map probably doesn't have the right proportions or anything, so the X should just be there as a very basic guideline for where you should dig. And the Freedom Fighters bring up that money has no value since Eggman took over the planet. I'll come back to this. But them saying that only makes the earlier short story Foiled Again, where they're making comics to make money, make even less sense. And Sonic says there's gotta be a better way to earn a living, when this panel makes it clear that you can't earn a living. Now back to that. I can only understand how that would work in the context of money has no value because only people with free will can spend it and get paid it, and those people are all either in hiding or working as slaves anyways. So there's no need of money. And like Eggman can just threaten to get what he wants so he doesn't need to pay people. It's just a weird concept to me, a country with no money. But since that country is the only country on its planet, so it doesn't have to deal with other countries, it doesn't have to use currency by dealing with them, like in trading and stuff. It's just a little ridiculous to me, although it does make sense considering Eggman's, like, iron grip on the world. However, Sonic mentions since Uncle Chuck was magically a brilliant inventor. Yeah, I still find that kind of hard to believe. They already have Tails and Rotor and Eggman, too. His treasure might actually be a useful invention. Why the hell has he buried such a useful invention? Why the hell he had buried such a useful invention before being roboticized so that Sonic would be able to look for in the first place? I have no clue. So far, this looks like a story with the most inane of excuse plots. But let's go with it. I'm still interested to see how this turns out. Well, I've already read the comic by this point, but you know what I mean. So, the Freedom Fighters start searching for this magical treasure in Mobius National Park, which somehow Eggman hasn't torn down from his hatred of nature yet. Why are any forests in Mobius still up yet? Well, good, at least the comic did acknowledge the silliness by having the natural park indeed be polluted and ruined. But still, logically all the forests in the world shouldn't have still been standing right now. And so the entire planet should have died from not getting enough oxygen produced by the trees. That's the problem with having Eggman be like a straw man who's hopelessly obsessed with hating nature, is that logically if he's taken over the whole world, he should have destroyed all the forests, except I guess maybe the one Sonic's protecting, and so the entire planet should have died from not having enough oxygen. At least Sally complains about the chemicals getting to her, so at least one of the freedom fighters acknowledges how silly it is that they're all perfectly fine breathing in this polluted air all the time. But since it's only Sally who has a problem with it, it just sticks out as stupid and arbitrary even more, especially since she only has to lie down for a little while before running again. So Eggman coincidentally shows up right as they find the treasure and starts trying to hunt the freedom fighters down. Why is Tails making a joke at his own expense when he's being threatened with a drill robot? This is the definition of forced out-of-place comedy. We're in a tense situation, and this joke doesn't flow naturally from the character it's in. It just waters the tension down. I like how Sonic wrecks his drill by running so that it hits something with it and breaks it. Here we go. Unfortunately, Sonic's method of saving Rotor from the swap bots is the definition of contrived. Somehow, they aren't programmed to recognize the voice of their boss's arch enemy. And even worse, aren't programmed to recognize when a voice isn't the voice of their master. So all Sonic has to do is talk like Robotnik for them to put Rotor down without questioning it. Remember when our crab meat got suspicious of Rotor and his Eggman disguise because he said please? And so he warned the real Eggman about what was going on instead of doing his order? Why is a random badnik more intelligent than these swap bots? You'd think even the most basic of programming Eggman's robots, the first thing he would have done when making them would be to make them recognize his voice. If just about anyone can give his robots orders by imitating him, that's just stupid. I mean, I'm not saying it should have made him unable to achieve anything, because who would have gotten the idea that they could do that? Well, Sonic did apparently, because the writer wanted him to. And no, I'm not buying the idea that he can perfectly imitate Eggman's voice to a T, even if it does make more sense. There's no way that's possible, with his voice being that different, him being so much younger than him and everything. I mean, he doesn't even have a Chaos Emerald around to justify him doing such a magical thing. Besides, wasn't it supposed to be Rotor who was good at imitating Eggman's voice? He even said so when he was disguising himself as Eggman. And it makes more sense for Rotor being able to do that because I imagine that he has a deeper voice than Sonic. This is just dumb, and it's not even a necessary evil, because Sonic could have easily just spin dashed through all of those swap bots like when he saved Bunny. What I just realized was forgotten about in this issue, by the way. I guess she got sick from eating bad pasta? I mean, really, she gets a short end of the stick on a lot of these issues. And to add on another thing to this pile of plot conveniences, the swap bots just so happen to walk into a pile of toxic ooze that gets them stuck right afterwards. They have to have one of the swap bots make a stupid pun on the ooze too. Again, this is forced comedy. Why would they be making a joke right now, in their situation? And we just established that these robots are so mindlessly stupid that they'll drop Rotor just from any random person ordering them to. And now all of a sudden I'm expected to believe they've got enough life in them to have a punny sense of humor? This is just ridiculous. Sonic making a pun here makes sense, because he's not in a bad situation, so he has every reason to want to be joking around. And it's just in his nature to be lighthearted and jokery. It's still not funny, but it's much less forced than the Swapbots joke, or Tails' joke earlier. This image perfectly represents the problem I have with the comedy emphasis, like early in the comic. I don't hate comedy per se, I hate it when it feels so forced and unnatural that it's kind of meta and just takes me out of it. So far, this issue isn't looking so good. I mean, I'm only invested because I want to know what exactly the treasure of Uncle Chuck is. And even then, I think it's going to just... Like, even when I first read this comic, I thought it was just going to turn out to be something useless to them. Sally's still dizzy from the chemicals, her and only her, but Sonic still manages to save her from a buzz bomber and get her to run along with him. And eventually we cut to all the freedom fighters except for Bunny digging up the chest at last. It's a good thing Tails escaped from the robots and got back here off screen, since Sonic had to help everyone else except him. Well, he did have to help him, but we never saw Tails running away after that. Eggman takes off with the treasure at last, and finally it's revealed that when Sally said the word feet, he finally remembered what was actually in the treasure chest. I guess Chuck told him what he put in there? It was Sonic's bronze baby shoes all along. No, this is a lot better than a stupid note saying the treasure was inside you all along. Although I was still expecting the treasure to be something sweet and sentimental rather than useful anyways. Both because if it was so useful, why would Chuck ever bury it instead of using it? And because it'd be too convenient a way to take down Robotnik. This is actually a pretty sweet ending. Although in the end, it's still arbitrary. If Sonic's bronze baby shoes meant so much to his uncle, and his uncle at that, where's his parents in all this? Why the hell did he bury them under the ground instead of, say, keeping them in his house as a trophy? So now for Sorcerers in Distress. All the freedom fighters are dressed up for Halloween. I really like this. I mean, it looks pointless, but I like how even though they're in a depressing and dark situation, hiding from Eggman all the time, they still want to enjoy themselves by celebrating holidays and stuff, because they don't want to let that get them down. They don't want to spend every minute of the day fighting Eggman, they just want to have fun. Even if it means dressing in silly costumes. It's really charming. It makes them more likable. Oh, I can't understand why Antoine would want to dress up like a devil instead of a knight in shining armor or some other heroic figure that appeals to his ego. He's at least in character by saying he wants to protect the princess, though. Rotor shows his style of humor. Tails is dressed up all cute. Don't know why the hell Sonic chose to dress up as Poison Ivy. What, does he secretly want people to avoid him in fear of getting really itchy or something? But Sally has the best looking costume of all, being dressed up like an evil sorceress. Why the evil part? Okay, maybe her constantly upholding a reputation as someone holier than thou, self-righteous and perfect, exhausts her with her constant pressure to be a moral, heroic person, to the point where she considers role-playing as an evil witch to be escapism. Although I honestly don't feel like she is like that at this point in the comic. She doesn't really strike me as like self-righteous and judgmental at this point. I'm perfectly fine with Sally right now. She's a smart, responsible leader character who is balanced out by the flaws of being bad at cooking and not always understanding how Sonic thinks and being able to predict that he won't always do what she wants him to do. The only time I outright hate Sally so far is when she's being a bystander or laughing instead of standing up for Antoine. When you'd expect her, the smart, responsible leader, to just be all like, cut it out you two, every single time. She seems out of character whenever she's like that. What I was going to say was that I love her outfit, because I love playing around in my head with the idea of her being a powerful sorceress. Remember, I complained about the Freedom Emeralds being totally discarded, because it forced her to remain much less competent than Sonic is, being unable to really fight. Even if the whole Robotnik problem would have been solved far too easily if she was a sorceress who could just zap him away, but, you know, she could have been like less powerful than that. But now let's finally get into the story. Sally wants to find a stick so that she can pretend that's her magic staff to complete the costume on superficial level. I don't see why a sorceress would need a staff, but whatever. And Antoine, sucking up to her, offers to accompany her in the forest for her protection. See, if he was acting slimy like this more often, I wouldn't find Sonic's bullying of him to be so uncomfortable. Let me guess. Sally is offended because she doesn't want to look or feel weak, and insists on going alone, right? I love it when I guess right. Antoine tries to reason with her to no avail. Sally has moments of irrationality. See, this is why I like how she's portrayed at this point in the comic. We can't say that she's a Mary Sue, because she's wrong sometimes. It makes her more believable. And she's not wrong over entirely arbitrary, like random things. She's usually wrong when she really wants to prove that she's right to herself and not look weak. So it makes sense. She's not just doing stuff, making mistakes because, oh, we have to make her make mistakes. She roleplays with a stick pretending that it could make a rock rise upwards, not knowing that there was a geyser that actually did send the rock upwards from below. How does she not notice the geyser? Well, maybe she thought that the geyser was also something that she summoned with the staff. And like that was just part of the spell. And Eggman happens to spot this on the plot convenience satellite monitor, as Sally amusingly tries to do magic with the staff for a while, wondering if she's saying the wrong words. Again, this makes her believable and entertaining. Unfortunately, the plot swiftly takes a turn for the creepy, as Eggman not only wants a staff, but is also in love with her. Sally is not only a child at this point, but she's also a freaking squirrel. So apparently relationships between humans and Mobians are considered okay in this universe, or at least Eggman finds him to be okay anyways. He's at least okay for himself. Whatever. Sally plays it smart by asking if she can have time to think about it and playing along rather than immediately making an enemy out of him by saying no. So like this shows that she's like the smart and level-headed one. I like when they have character moments like this. But seriously, how does Eggman not recognize her face? Like she's not even in a costume that covers up her face. Does he think that all squirrel Mobians look alike? Well actually that makes perfect sense. He hates hedgehogs, maybe he races against squirrels too. Sonic follows them because Sally misinterpreted what he was going to do once again. And, oh great, here we go. Sonic somehow turns himself invisible and saves Sally that way. What the fuck? If Sonic can turn himself invisible, why didn't he take down Eggman a long time ago? Like, go sneak into his base, destroy everything with his invisibility. I mean, okay, we do see SBO later in the comic and he hasn't taken him down yet, but still, I compliment Sonic's creative use of his powers in the games, allowing him to do all sorts of things that he can't do in the games when you're controlling him, but logically could anyways. This, on the other hand, just comes out of nowhere. It just gets made up. And the most insulting thing is that all Sonic had to do was run up to Sally and carry her out. This invisibility thing can't even be forgiven as a necessary Deus Ex Machina. It's just something that happened randomly for the sake of it. And of course, Sonic never uses this power again. So was this story even canon? You know, this might have been justified if Sonic clearly showed he had a Chaos Emerald with him at that time, but he doesn't. So 2 issues in a row where Sonic having a Chaos Emerald would have justified the ridiculousness. And after Sally is saved by him, she gives him a kiss as a thank you. Aww, that's a nice friendship moment, only to immediately hit him like a psychopathic bitch for saving her. Look, Sally, I get that your history with being the princess and thus being coddled overprotectively has left you very self-conscious about looking weak. You want to be strong and independent. I get that. But this is how you repay someone who saved your life? Sally was about to be in major trouble with Eggman because she wasn't able to do anything magical in front of him, so he was accusing her of trying to make him look like an idiot. Who knows what would have happened if Sonic hadn't been there? She probably would have been roboticized. And you know, she apologizes for slapping Sonic later on in the comics, and expresses a lot of regret at it, so I can mostly forgive that. But considering she never shows any sort of regret for doing this, something way worse and way more likely to injure Sonic, which is hitting him with a wooden staff instead of just the back of her hand, I find this to be way more aggravating and deserving of being held up by Sally haters than a mere slap. Especially since she did it for Sonic saving her. I don't care if it happened early in the comic, it still happened. It's worse because the whole reason Sally exists is to be the girl power character. A role model for girls. And that's probably why she got a bunch of fans in the first place. She was the first good female Sonic character. She's like not Amy or like Rouge, who's accused of being sexist, even though she's fine, but whatever. But this just makes Sally look like an over-feminist bitch. And that's coming from a girl. I complimented her making irrational decisions earlier, like leaving the base all alone for the sake of her pride, because that humanizes her, without really sacrificing her heart to making her look like she doesn't care about her friends. This, on the other hand, is just inexcusable. All in all, while the first story did keep me invested with nice action and me wondering what exactly the treasure was, and it had a sweet and funny ending, I also noticed it was riddled with plot conveniences. Why did Chuck have that map where it was to begin with? And why did the SWAT bots let go of Rotor just because Sonic, their greatest enemy, told them to, instead of just destroying them effortlessly? In the second story, While an interesting premise, Eggman wanted to marry Sally, and that was really creepy considering the age and species difference. Not to mention him not noticing who she is. And Sally has a major bitch moment at the end. Sorry, Angelo. I may appreciate the story focus on a character other than Sonic here, and how she feels more human. But don't make her an ungrateful bitch. She can be irrational at times and still care about her friends.